Hi, welcome to the KaiNexus Continuous Improvement Podcast. I'm Mark Graban, Senior Advisor with KaiNexus, and we're going to do another Ask Us Anything. We're joined today by,
Greg Jacobson. I'm the CEO and co-founder. Good to be with you, Mark.
yeah, good to see you again, Greg. It's been a little while, and we've got a couple questions that came in. It'd be fun to talk about, and then we'll talk about a little bit about what's going on, what's to come at KaiNexus. You're an avid reader. You've read and you've presented a lot about, the books on habits, and I encourage people to go check out podcasts and webinars about that. What's a book that stands out to you recently that you've read?
Just been reading a bunch. One I will say on the habit side of things, you mentioned that, and I recently listened to a great podcast with Duhigg and Attia. On Attia's podcast, but it was great. It's just amazing. Done a lot of reading on habits, and I'm still learning things.
That's Charles Duhigg, and then whose podcast is that? I don't know the other name.
Attia.
Peter Attia.
He's a physician and kind of in the health span kind of area, and just talking about different lifestyle changes. And the little nugget that I'll just take from that was Duhigg mentioned that there's only 5 types of cues. And the 5 cues are, let's see if I can do this off of memory, are location, people, emotion, another preceding habit. That's number 4, and I'm losing it. Hold on, I'm looking at my notes here.
So people as a prompt would be somebody reminding you or prompting you through,
or just you see a person. Every time I see a person or talk to a person, I do this habit.
Okay.
Oh, and then time. So location, I always flip the light switch when I walk into a room. I always do a huddle when I'm at the huddle board. Time of day, I do this when I wake up, when I go to sleep at 1:00. Emotion, when I'm happy, I do this. When I'm sad, I do this. When I'm bored, I do this. And the people we mentioned, or habit stacking, as it's often referred to in the literature, or a preceding habit. So I thought that was a great little nugget from that side. But I haven't yet got to your question, though.
Yeah.
Three books.
Did you come up with the 5th?
Yeah. So it was location.
Yeah.
Time of day.
Okay.
An emotion, person, and a prior habit.
Okay. That is all 5. Okay.
Yep.
But back to the book.
Okay. So I recently read Elizabeth Swann's book, and let me get the name right. She was
I know Elizabeth and her book, Picture Yourself a Leader.
Picture Yourself a Leader. I thought it was so great because it is divided into a ton of chapters, and each chapter is very short and it's nugget sized. And it doesn't necessarily need to be read in order. That's how I listened to the book. But I felt like it was a really good summary of topics I had read in the past, or a really good primer or introduction to topics that I looked at or I haven't come across yet. So highly recommended. I don't know if you read her book yet or listened to it.
I got to read it early, and I did an endorsement blurb for the book. And I encourage people to go find the webinar that Elizabeth did in our KaiNexus webinar series that's out there publicly available. And she was a great keynote speaker at our KaiNexicon annual user conference. So she has connections to, that's probably where you got the book.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, she at KaiNexicon, she was very gracious, and she handed me the book, and just extremely transparently, I just said, Elizabeth, I really appreciate this gift. I am not going to read this book because I do not read, but I will listen to it if there's an audio version. And she said, you're like the 4th or 5th person that keeps bringing this up, that they don't read, but they're an avid audio book listener. Right. And so about a few months later, she reached out and she just said, hey, I went ahead and made an audiobook, and I'm so glad she did, because I consumed it when it was next up on my list. So
on the title, there's so many drawings that she has in the book, though. So I don't know how she addressed that in the audiobook version.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely downsides to audio where there's, yes, sometimes you just don't get it. You just have to move on with medium and just having disadvantages.
Yeah.
The advantages to me outweigh. So,
There's a lot of insights in that book, even without the drawing. So, some books are basically all words, and that translates well
yep.
to
A
audio.
lot of the times the audiobooks will have an accompanying PDF to kind of bridge that gap. I'm typically working out or doing other things. And so, I get what I can and I look at it more as a glass is half full versus, oh, what am I missing versus what am I getting? So,
Yeah. Was
another,
there anything that stood out, in particular about leadership that really resonated with you? Something that you thought, oh, that's something I could stop doing or something I could start doing?
oh man, it was a couple months ago now.
Yeah.
What I loved about it was that the chapters were short and they were distilled into the highest, most valuable insights. And so I just recall, obviously, she does talk about habits at one point. I remember like she's gonna hit all the points. I would recommend the book as a way to get a lot of coverage of lots of different business topics.
Yeah.
Was there something you had in mind?
It's been a longer time since I've read it. So I put you on the spot. I'd struggle to answer that too. But no, just thinking back very generally, I mean, I remember the book inviting a lot of reflection.
That was what I felt also. One of the things I was trying to do in real time, and I didn't do it well enough, is the thing we started chatting about before we hit the record button, and you said you should mention that. What I found myself doing recently is either to make the decision in order to read a book, or after the book, I'll do this, and then I've been doing this with my wife just so we can talk about books, but is using an AI to summarize the book. And kind of reading the summary allows me to kind of transition the information into more of a longer term memory.
Mhm.
And so I've been using ChatGPT, but they all, I think, kind of work the same in this case. But I would highly recommend when you finish it, just to say, give me a 500-word summary of the book.
Yeah.
And it really helps kind of reinforce some of the high concepts of the book. So another book I read it's called the 5% Leadership Rule. Let me just find it here. Lists. The 5% Rule of Leadership by Singal. And the whole concept of this book is that leaders, instead of spending time at the last 5% of a project, if they would spend time working on a project in the first 5%, it would create a lot of guidance for an organization, and it would minimize the amount of rework that's done in the organization. And so that really felt like it was something that was kind of a nice little nugget to move forward with. I don't know if that's a book you've read before.
I don't know that book.
And then the Bringing Out the Best in People by Daniels.
Mhm.
Do you know that one?
I don't know that one either.
I think Adam Hoffman may have recommended that one to me, but it got into my list, and that's a book that kind of talks a lot about motivating people and giving rewards and accountability, and it really goes through a lot of kind of the opinions on, do annual reviews work and do bonuses work, and it was definitely thought provoking. What I think is interesting is at the end of the book, it just becomes all about implementing ideation systems and Kaizen and Lean, which I find always very validating and heartwarming when you find these principles in non-lean books, and all of a sudden it just goes into 30 or 50 pages about it. And you're like, yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. Did the book take a strong stance on those questions of annual performance reviews or bonuses? Because there's a lot of people and there's companies moving away from the traditional annual performance review. They're moving away from the old stacked ranking kind of
Yes.
thing.
Yes.
And then, Dan Pink, the book Drive talks about the dysfunctions with bonuses and incentives. Like, they work. The problem is they have side effects. Did this book take a strong stance either way?
I would say very strong, very anti-annual reviews,
Mm-hmm.
just explaining, when the reward is disconnected from the action. And so he is very opinionated and in a not annoying way, in a conversational way. So I would say so.
I had, this is not a question anybody asked, but I'm going to tell a quick story. I was at the post office yesterday to drop off a package. It was pre-labeled, just ready to go. It was a product return with a prepaid label. So I handed it to the postal clerk across the counter. He scanned it. There was no need for me to pay, but the credit card terminal pops up one of these customer satisfaction things of a red frowny face, a yellow flat face, and a green smiley face. Well, the clerk reaches across and taps the green smiley face.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I would have tapped green smiley face. I don't know if it was worth surveying me on this kind of non-transaction transaction. And I didn't say anything, but it made me think, like, what reward are they getting for greens, or what threatened punishment is there
Right.
enough greens that would drive somebody to do that? I'm not going to say that clerk was unethical. The clerk was responding to whatever domain they're working within, or what kind of management regime they're under.
It's such a great conversation, because I'm always preoccupied with, if you set a goal, which, by the way, this book talks about not doing, if you set a goal, then, or you start measuring something, how there is benefit in doing those sorts of things, right? But as soon as you do it, it becomes about the goal or about the measurement versus about the value or the trait or the process. And it's like it removes critical thinking, because sometimes you say, well, the real thing they're trying to do is gauge, are people happy with the interaction they just had? And so, but they probably said, oh, well, we want to have 90% greens,
Yeah, there's a target there. Yeah.
Right. But the clerk or the person, the post office person, like, well, I can certainly get you 90% greens.
Yeah.
But the intent is, we're trying to understand what the reality of the situation is, or figure out, are there certain kinds of transactions that people are unhappy with. And so
I think this is an example. I Googled it to make sure I was correct. Goodhart's law. When a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Right. It was first proposed by an economist. Once people know a metric is being used for rewards or a target, they will find ways to manipulate it, and it can undermine the original goal. Instead of the critical thinking going to thoughts around what can we do to improve, people use their critical thinking, especially when they're not allowed to improve. Mm-hmm. The only thing they have leverage over is distorting the metrics. They're going to distort the metrics. It's standard human behavior.
I think it's why I always feel that trust is the lubricant of the engine business. And anyway, okay, I was reminded by, I was going back in my brain. I was reminded by a couple of the things that Elizabeth had written about, and so a couple of those were related to this concept that there's that leadership is not a title. Basically, we talk about this at KaiNexus all the time. Like, you can be a leader without having a title. That, leadership is about the way you behave and the way you interact versus the title that you have. And so I loved that. And, of course, there's a lot in the book about problem solving. And so she talks a lot about, culture and how really the culture is a collection of behaviors, and I think she said it was a contact sport. It's not a, nothing you said on the lines of design. It's like you get out on the playing field and figure it out.
Even if there's no contact, it's a participatory,
It's participatory. There you go. Hopefully just no
not a spectator. Or well, that's good. Thank you for highlighting Elizabeth's book. Before we move on, a couple other topics. Do we have the time?
I'm just saying we do. Yes, I just realized we're 2 minutes over, but I don't have anything right this second, so we're great.
Okay. I the most recent book that I've read, I think I can make a connection to entrepreneurship. So my favorite movie of all time, I don't know if you've seen it, Greg. It's This Is Spinal Tap from 1984, the classic rockumentary, the fake documentary about a fake band that's also a real band now, Spinal Tap. Do you know it?
Of course.
So that's my favorite movie. There's a sequel out now, Spinal Tap 2, The End Continues. It's pretty good. Like no what sequel ever lives up to the original, but there's a book out now written by Rob Reiner with contributions by the three key band members and actors, Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, and Harry Shearer. And the title of the book is one of the great lines from the movie. The title of the book is A Fine Line Between Stupid and Clever.
Interesting.
And it's the story of, for one, like how these incredibly uniquely talented people ever crossed paths in different academic and professional circles. And, but like the one thing, jumping ahead to 41 years after the Spinal Tap was released, a lot of people consider it, in the top 100 movies of all time list. It's in the National Film Registry. A lot of people like me say it's their favorite movie ever. Rob Reiner, as a first-time director, and like this is a very entrepreneurial story. Like he was famous as an actor from All in the Family.
Mm-hmm.
He had the hardest time actually getting somebody to invest money into this now classic film because it was so unique and groundbreaking. Nobody understood what it is.
Right.
What do you mean it's a fake documentary? Why are you making a documentary about this band that's terrible that no one's ever heard of? He made a minimum viable product basically to try to show people like 20 minutes worth of this is what it would be.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just really, really hard to find anybody that could share the vision, that could invest in it. It eventually got released, and I think even the movie theaters and reviewers didn't know what to do with it. Like it made money, but it didn't make much money. But then, thanks to home video technology, it became known and it spread, and it took a long time to be a cult classic. For anyone who thinks, every amazing movie or every amazing company has to be an overnight success, maybe there's some comfort in the need to stick to your vision, and you're going to hear a lot of no's, and persistence can be key.
Yeah,
So that's one of the takeaways.
Yeah, when you're really doing something innovative, oftentimes people won't really understand or appreciate it.
That happened with KaiNexus 12, 13 years ago. I was there during.
Yeah. Yeah. The inherent tension is when is that feedback actually something you should listen to?
Yeah.
Versus something that just says, oh, people don't get it yet. And so that's
tough.
the inherent tensions.
Any small PDSA cycle in a workplace, how do we know, like, is this idea not working or is it not working yet?
Right.
There's judgment calls there, right?
Which I think is why, minimum viable product, test the smallest change you can make, see it going in the right direction. Growing a business through your revenue versus through an investor or investment. Those are all little governors that you can put that will help you determine, how do I limit risk or how do I get real feedback? Because if people aren't willing to pay for something, ultimately tells you something,
Mm-hmm.
And then if people are willing to pay for something, that really, it gives you a lot more insight than just, oh, you were able to convince an investor or a group of investors to put in money.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's obviously I'm a little biased in all those areas. So
yeah. Well, that's one I wanted to share. The other question we got asked, you touched on this a little bit about ChatGPT summaries. How are you using AI? What's another way you're using that kind of, at work or even professional development, like book summaries?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I do a lot of the traditional things. So I don't really like to go on support side. So, using it to answer kind of software questions, I'm in Google Sheets a lot. I've answered it in that way. We put all of our at KaiNexus, we put all of our support docs into a model. We're going to be, releasing an AI on our support side here, sooner rather than later. We've been testing it out. So those sorts of things are amazing. Doing a lot of personal research with it. I take guitar lessons, as you probably know, and I'm trying to increase my chops on music theory. So doing a lot of like building my own class, so to speak, is you can go read about it, but until you like synthesize and write the information down for yourself, you don't really understand it. So I think there's just a huge amount of application in that. I'll say that I'm really excited. Not that you directly asked me about this, but I'm really excited. We've been running a POC here at KaiNexus for the last proof of concept for the last several months, figuring out how are we going to embed AI into the product. And so
I've played around with that a little bit. And I loved it. Yeah.
it is really remarkable the type of questions you can answer, you can ask it, and the insights that you can get back from it. So our first release in the new year is going to have our first foray into AI search, and I'm looking forward. We already have many versions after that scoped out, and so I think AI in the continuous improvement space is going to be a lot of fun and just a lot of value add. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And I'll just say, just because you asked, I'm also excited about, I know you didn't, but I'm just lying. I'm also excited that right now we're kind of putting the final touches on capacity planning and assessments that are all going to be coming out in the next several releases. So
I was going to ask you about that, but you got so excited, you jumped right in. So tell us more about that. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's a feature that people have asked for many years, and it's a feature we knew that if we were going to do it, it was going to be a huge amount of work to do it right. And so we've had a beta out there for a while. We've been doing a ton of feedback on about, say, 5 to 10 customers that have been using the beta. And it's going to answer the question of, are these people, are they overcommitted? Are they working on too many things? And what is the commitment of the entire team that's working on an individual item? Are they overcommitted? So really trying to figure out who are the right people to put on a project, and do they have the capacity to do it? And then understanding what is this person working on and how much of their capacity is this 20% of their capacity, 100% of this group of their capacity working on this. That's the capacity planning module / feature that we'll be releasing. And it's really going to help people that are doing a lot of project management type work in KaiNexus. On the other side of things, the other major module, and this is exciting, Mark, is it's been years since we put out entire new modules of KaiNexus out, is the assessment module. People have been using KaiNexus to do rounding and audits and checklists, and doing that work in KaiNexus is great. Some of the ways that we have to manage that work on the back end are not as friendly on the customer side. And so we have done a huge amount of work to make that all customer facing, and they can build their own assessments and make that. So that's going to be coming out in the early part of next year as well. Very large multi-release efforts that are going to be seeing the light of day very soon.
That's great. Every release brings something new. There's a internal expression anyway. Next release, best release.
Next release, best release. Absolutely. I just watched the Apple keynote on their new stuff, and they basically say the same thing without, not as elegantly as we do.
Yeah. And I was going to answer that question about AI. Generative AI. I was using it most recently. I'm speaking next week at 2 different events, the Global Lean Summit, where KaiNexus is going to be there as participants and an exhibitor, and giving a version of the same talk at the Lean Solutions Summit. Instead of going to sometimes you can't find a stock image, a licensed stock image that's both good and legal to use. So Google Gemini, to me, has taken the lead over ChatGPT in describing a workplace scene and a leader saying, for example, a leader saying, I might be wrong, and like generating a photo quality image of somebody talking and even showing like a bit of like emotion on their face appropriately, subtly. So using some of those images as backgrounds or illustrations of something that might otherwise just be all words, but doing that. And then, I think, it's like on the topic of summarizing things, we think about generating text. I think tools like ChatGPT are exceedingly good at taking a big, long document and shrinking it. So I'm HOA board president, and sometimes you get, stuff from the lawyers, and I'm like, oh, for Pete's sake, like ask ChatGPT and in plain language, tell me what this means and what the implications are. So, yeah, no offense to lawyers, but that was super helpful just to make sure. And like, am I reading this right?
And I put things in, and I don't remember which one I used, but I put things in. It's like, can you compare these two contracts and tell me where the differences are?
Yeah.
And it's able to do that type of stuff really well. So I think if the answer is that it's not going to cause a nuclear war if it's wrong, then I think it's a great place to do that type of do that type of work, because they all have the disclaimer: this may not be accurate, it's not correct. You need to double check the work. And so again, if someone was operating on me and that was what they were using, I think I would be a little more concerned. Hey, but for things like you just mentioned, I'm not going to spend 6 hours and read this HOA document, but in a couple of minutes, if I can get a sense of what it is, that's probably good enough to have the conversation you need to have with the HOA.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a sense check with the management company that spends more time reading these types of things. But yeah, I mean, it can be wrong. I mean, I've even done some things related to podcasts, and you have a transcript, and you have one tool that creates the automated transcript, huge time saver, but then running that through Google Gemini will clean up the transcript. But it's still, even on sometimes a very limited data set, will kind of hallucinate things.
Yeah.
It's one thing of like, oh, you've got all of the world's content, but you still have to be careful of like, if you're asking me to pull out some quotes and did that person really say that? Like sometimes it cleans up the language, and sometimes even like from a collection of podcast transcripts, it'll misattribute a quote to the wrong guest, or I've had it like, give me a list of these different podcasts and it'll make up a name of somebody I've never interviewed and someone I've never heard of.
So, yeah, I know it definitely gets things wrong. I recently got solar panels and was looking at the buyback rate that the electric company will purchase your electricity, and it was just flat out wrong. And I had done a calculation with one, and then I ended up going to the electric company's website, and it had a different rate. This was not an updated number, so it's very much in this extends you at this point. It's currently not replacing. It'll be interesting to see how things evolve. Obviously, there's the doomsday scenarios. And then there's, is this going to augment? And the Luddites from the 1700s, obviously, there's still jobs. So is this going to be one of those technologies that just extends us and allows us to do different kind of work? It's a wild time to be alive.
With any of these tools, next released, better release, these tools are as bad as they're ever going to be.
There you go. I haven't heard that before, but I'll let you know.
So we shall see. Well, if you've got questions for future Ask Us Anything podcast, or if we do another webinar, there is a form on the website. You could always just email me, mark@kainexus.com, and I can always throw those questions at Greg, and we'll chat. We'll do this again before too long. I think that'll wrap things up, I think, for today. That's a little over 30 minutes. It's a good podcast. Always good talking to Greg. Thank you for sharing about the books and some other tips. I'm going to go check out those books. Appreciate the recommendation.
Thanks so much, Mark. It's always a pleasure getting to catch up and talk about new topics. Should we end this the way we usually do?
Go for it.
We will see you next time.